He was the guy she hated the most. Ellen Corby was born on June 3, 1911, in the small Wisconsin town of Ryan. Her full name is Ellen Hanson Corby. From where she grew up, it was a long way to the bright lights of Hollywood, which would later define her career. She grew up in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, and knew from a young age that the stage and screen had a big impact on her. She wasn't just skilled. She was sensitive, smart, and enthusiastic in a quiet way, her on-camera signature traits. She didn't start acting right away after high school. She got into Hollywood through a back door. In the early 1930s, she worked as a continuity clerk and copy girl. Her long time behind a camera taught her a lot about how movies are really made, which is something that many artists never get to do. She learned how to read and feel a scene like an artist and weaver. The act, the speed, and the way you look at it all make something amazing. But the more she looked, the more she wanted to come out from behind the trees. By the middle of the 1930s, Ellen had finally started to play small parts in movies. It was hard to miss them, even though many of them didn't have names. Her short height, sharp eyes, and clear voice made an impression that stayed longer than her screen time. The movie business quickly learned that Ellen Corby wasn't someone who stole scenes. They were changed by her, always present, on time, and slightly appealing. As a minor actor, she was liked by directors, and people who didn't know who she was remembered her. Ellen played lead roles in several well-known Hollywood movies over the years, including Sabrina, 1954, Shane, 1953, Little Women, 1949, and It's a Wonderful Life, 1946. People always remember how she could make people feel strong feelings with the smallest movements, even in small parts. When she played Aunt Trina in I Remember Mama in 1948, she got a lot of attention. She was nominated for both a Golden Globe and an Academy Award for Best Supporting Actress for her honest and heartfelt performance. Because of this, she became one of the most popular supporting players of her time. Ellen never wanted fame for its own sake, even though she was becoming more and more famous. She was happy to back the story and give each role she played a real feel. Ellen gained a lot of fame in the 1950s and 1960s when she appeared on hit TV shows like The Twilight Zone, Bonanza, The Andy Griffith Show, Perry Mason, and The Beverly Hillbillies. Her singing had a huge range. She was naturally sweet, whether she was playing a strict mother, an odd aunt, or a calm, friendly neighbor. People were always interested in what character she would play next in her movies. She always showed up with her unique mix of humor, kindness, and soft dominance. People in the crowd always knew who she was, even if they didn't know her name. It felt real, comfortable, and real because she was there. Ellen Corby, on the other hand, didn't play Grandma Esther Walton on the hit TV show The Waltons until 1972. This would be the most famous thing she's ever done. During the hard Great Depression, the show showed the ups and downs of a close-knit Virginia family. Ellen, as the family's boss, was at the center of it all, and the audience felt her power. As Grandma Walton, she was the emotional center of the whole family because she could be kind, strong, and funny all at the same time. The couple she played on TV with Will Geer, who played Grandpa Walton, was one of the most real and touching older couples I've seen. For her part on the show, she won 3 Emmys, which solidified her place in TV history. Ellen did, however, have a terrible stroke in 1976 that mostly crippled her and stopped her from moving or speaking. A lot of people thought that her career had ended all of a sudden. On the other hand, Ellen never gave up. With amazing determination, she fought her way through rehab and then went back to the Waltons, weaving her own recovery into the story of Grandma Walton. It wasn't just a show when she came back. It showed how brave she was and how much she cared about her job. A lot of people were moved to tears when she came back to the screen, both because they loved her character and because they loved Ellen, the strong woman who raised her to fame. Ellen Corby was a quiet, kind, and highly religious woman when she wasn't acting, away from the spotlight. She had a peaceful life in California, and many of her co-workers became lasting friends. Even though she was famous, she was nice and humble. People who worked with her often said she was a guide, a friend, and someone who made them feel better on set. People who worked on the Waltons admired her not only for her skills, but also for how kind and smart she was all the time. Ellen worked well into her later years by taking part in TV projects and specials during the long run of the show. Even after she stopped singing, she had a big impact. In Hollywood, she was a beauty and an example because she never gave up on her work, stayed strong when things went wrong, and stuck to the timeless values of love, family, and hard work. Frank Corby and Ellen Hansen got married in 1934. She was 20 years younger than him and had only been working in Hollywood for a short time. He was a director and cinematographer. Ellen was still trying hard to make a name for herself in the acting and screenwriting industries. Through this union, she was able to get in touch with someone who had worked in the movie business for a long time. Francis Corby, who was famous for being very good at the technical side of working behind the camera, gave Ellen chances to learn more about the job and come up with new ideas. Even though they were different ages, they seemed like a good match at first because he had experience and she wanted to be young. Ellen often said that Francis pushed her to follow her own artistic interests. Thanks to his deep knowledge of film, she had a new way of looking at how story, camera, and direction work, which sparked her growing love for the medium. Their house turned into a lively spot where writers, directors, and artists could get together. There should be a place where people can easily share their thoughts and where Ellen could work on her goals to become a playwright and performer. But as the years went by, their marriage started to show signs of getting worse. There was a clear gap between them because Hollywood moves quickly and their goals are always changing. Ellen was making a name for herself in a field that was mostly men's domain and becoming more independent. Francis, on the other hand, was happy with his job and focused on his goals. In 1944, 11 years after getting married, they split up. Even though they didn't have any children at the time, Ellen saw it as a changing point in her life and thought about it with thought instead of sadness. It changed how she thought about relationships, personal growth, and the adjustments many people have to make to follow their artistic dreams. Getting divorced was the start of a new time of self-discovery and freedom. In 1954, 10 years after that, Ellen met Stella Lachetta. This meeting would have a big effect on her daily life. Ellen met Stella, a kind and loyal woman, at a time when close friendship and emotional connection were more important than fame or glitz. As Ellen looked for understanding and safety, she gave it to her. They liked and respected each other, which made it easy for their friendship to grow. Ellen and her partner became close over time and were there for her through the good and bad times in her Hollywood business and personal life. Stella turned into more than just a friend. Ellen looked up to her and always felt safe, loved, and strong because of her. Together, they made a quiet, private life for themselves away from the attention of others. They had simple joys, shared activities, and laughter all through their home. Ellen went through a lot of hard times while playing Grandmaster Walton on the Waltons. Stella was always there for her, even though the scene was very sad and the plan for the show was very busy. Stella took care of Ellen and fought for her rights after she had a severe stroke in 1976. This helped her get better and go back to the school. This is a strong sign of how much they love each other. They never talked about their relationship in public because that was against the rules at the time. In spite of that, it was very private and marked by a lifetime of commitment. When she was on set, Ellen Corby was known for how professional, kind, and caring she was. Her co-workers were like family to her, especially when she was on the Waltons and played the beloved Grandma Esther Walton with honesty and love. Ellen's close family and friends told her behind the scenes that not all of her work relationships were good. One surprise event hinted at conflict and showed that Ellen had to deal with problems in Hollywood just like everyone else, even though she had a reputation for being a nice and admirable person. Richard Thomas, who played John Boy Walton, seems to have been someone Ellen Corby deeply disliked but didn't say anything about. It is said that their tension has grown over time. On set, they kept up a business and polite relationship, but Ellen's feelings were much deeper than most people thought. She said once, "I never had patience for arrogance." She couldn't deny that Richard had that naive charm that made people dislike him. They met for the first time when The Waltons came out in 1972. Richard Thomas quickly became well known on the show, even though he is only in his early 20s. His performance as a sensitive and driven young writer John Boy made him famous and praised right away. Ellen, who is many years older than him, ran the show. She had worked in Hollywood for many years and was very organized because she worked in the old studio system. She said it was very important to be ready on time and do things in the right order. She thought Richard didn't always live up to her hopes. He was talented, Ellen is said to have said, but talent means very little if you let it go to your head. He liked to talk about art and philosophy, but sometimes all I wanted was for him to show up on time and remember this was a job, not a classroom. Their disagreement didn't happen overnight. It got stronger over time as anger and small fights happened more often. Ellen thought Richard was smart and skilled, but she often thought that his young confidence was a sign of arrogance. But because he got ideas from younger people, Richard sometimes thought Ellen was too set in her ways and not willing to try new things. Little pressures build up over time into a complicated situation, which gave the popular show a tense feel. It was clear that Ellen Corby and Richard Thomas were not the same behind the scenes. He had that easy charm, Ellen said one time. The kind that makes everyone likes them, but it never worked on me. I could see through the charm to the ego underneath. Because she was honest, Thomas and her younger co-stars both liked and disliked her. Over the years of shooting, small problems kept happening that made things more tense. Ellen was very careful and got angry when scenes needed more than one take. She was mad because she often said Richard wasn't paying attention. Because she grew up in a time when actors had to say every line perfectly, she thought that younger people sometimes took their chances for granted. He'd joke around between takes trying to lighten the mood, she shared. But it felt rude to me. I worked hard for decades to get where I was in this business, and I didn't have time for games. Ellen was even more annoyed by how much the younger artists liked Richard. She didn't understand why they hadn't noticed what she thought was carelessness. Ellen, on the other hand, was never mean or angry. Even though she was mad at Richard, she always kept a professional attitude. She never made fun of him in public or refused to work with him. But people who knew her well could tell that things were getting tense whenever they were together. Crew members said Ellen became irritable or rude while he was there. Later, she said, "He just got under my skin. I have no idea why. It could have been his confidence or the way he made me think of someone from my past. I remember dreading those long times with him more than anyone else." There was a wry smile on her face every time his name came up because she was always honest. Ellen's feelings for Richard changed over time and as she thought about them. It's interesting that she never denied that their relationship was hard. She had a stroke in 1976 and got letters of support and nice things to say from people in the group. Richard was one of them. She made a subtle reference to a difficult relationship that had shaped her long and eventful career. He meant well, Ellen said, but there are some people you just can't connect with, no matter how many nice things they say about you. Ellen was said to talk about Richard Thomas with a mix of admiration and irritation, as if their tense relationship had stuck with her long after he had left the Waltons to work on other projects. This type was especially interesting because it was different from Ellen Corby's well-deserved reputation for being friendly and helpful. It was hard for her to pick a favorite co-star on the show. Will Gear, who played her husband Zeb Walton, and the younger actors were like grandkids to her, but she never really got close to Richard Thomas. Egos might have been at odds, or they might have been different ages. Or Ellen might have seen in him the same traits. She had learned to calm down on herself while surviving the tough Hollywood world. It was clear how she felt, no matter what the reason was. "I liked him as an actor, but I didn't like him as a person," she told him straight out. Ellen and Richard's tense working relationship turned into one of those little-known behind-the-scenes fights that had a bigger effect on the memory of the Waltons. As family members, they had great chemistry on screen, which showed how skilled they were. Even though there were smiles and touching moments, Ellen's anger stayed the same. It was one of the few problems she never fully solved. Whether it was pride, morals, or just her personality, she never liked Thomas. Ellen Corby died on April 14, 1999, at the Motion Picture and Television Country House and Hospital in Woodland Hills, Los Angeles. She was 87 years old. She was buried at Forest Lawn Memorial Park in Glendale, California. She left behind a legacy of grace, strength, and acts that people still talk about and find inspiring.